Hello, Steve. Folks, we have Steve Hart back again. And of course, it's been a while since he and I made a video together. And I had invited him to speak at the Metaphysicians Circle this past Sunday night. And this is Tuesday afternoon as we're recording this. It'll be the video for Wednesday. And the title for this discussion between the two of us will be Inner Self versus Outer Self. Steve, talk to us about this dichotomy, or is it a dichotomy?
Well, we'll get to the dichotomy in a second. Obviously, the first thing we identify with is our outer self, or what we see in our physical form, and so.
But when we're born into this world, that's inevitable.
Right. And so therefore that's all when we first come in, that's all we know. And we don't know about the inner self, or what we would call the true self, and when I say inner self, I'm referring to the true self, the higher self, or the large S versus the small s. And not, I know it gets confusing in the aspect of the physical versus the invisible, the spiritual. The truth of it is that they are one, but I want to talk about the contrast between the two of them. That's what I want to address. So let me clarify. We'll start off by saying I'm a believer that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So right there's a dichotomy. So something spiritual has come into the physical form,
Yeah.
And,
well, I agree with you so far.
yeah. And as a result of that, we have to learn to identify with both. But as we just said, when you come to this world, all we really identify is with our physical part of us and our mind, which the brain and our mind and our own awareness of what this is. And the struggle is coming into the awareness or the awakening of our true self, which is the spirit being, which after this body dies and decays, my spirit being will move on, and there is no end to it. And yet most people,
perhaps no beginning either.
That's true.
We don't know that for a fact, but we believe that there's, at least metaphysicians and spiritual people have long stated that there is no beginning or end, that we're all part of one creation and one creator.
Yeah. I personally cannot prove that I existed before I came to this world, but there are stories and news stories where people come into this world and they remember their previous lives, and it's amazing.
With very, very definite detail.
Right.
Like that one boy born to fundamentalist Christian parents who didn't believe in reincarnation, and yet he came in as a little boy saying, in my previous life, I was over. And then finally they went there, and he knew some of the people even.
Right. And names and everything, locations.
That's uncanny.
Yeah. And that's just one story. There are numerous stories I am aware of.
That's the one that I remember most.
Yeah. So if you want proof, it's not the kind of proof that most people will accept. At the same time,
that's a problem.
I personally have had glimpses of a previous life, but I don't have the details like you were describing. In fact, my old joke is, in my last life, I didn't believe in reincarnation.
Well, I'm sure in some of my lifetimes I didn't either, but I do believe that there is a continuum.
Yeah, I believe there is, and but so here's the contrast. There is a universal law which I refer to as the law of correspondence, and it basically says, "As above, so below." And then there's another description of "as within, so without," and the origination comes from the invisible, from within, without. So if I'm going to create something, I have to first visualize it in my mind and create that image, and then I can physically form it or shape it or make it happen here in the physical. The easiest way of doing that is, which I encourage people to do, is when you have a goal or an intention of what you want to accomplish, write it down. There's something magical. I used to fight that years ago. I used to say, "Oh, I know what I want. I don't have to write it down." But if you really want, in fact, I have a note right here that I just recently wrote something down of something I wanted to accomplish. And there's something magical that happens when you take a thought and you write it out. It actually puts the thought.
Well, it's a manifestation process.
That's exactly right. And the universe sees the writing or the typing or however you want to express it into the physical. The universe sees it, and our perception of that is the universe goes, "Oh, you're really serious about this. You really do want to make it happen." And at least that's my joke to how it works. At the same time, there's probably some truth to that somehow. I don't know how to explain that. I'm not going to try to explain that part of it. It's just that there's no question about there's a connection between the physical and the invisible. There's no question about that aspect. But the emphasis that I'm wanting to make is the fact of the inner self or the true self, the higher self, and our connection with that. Because if we only focus on the physical and our ego mind, we're lost. We're asleep. We really don't know who we are. And because our true self is our higher self. It's that spirit being. And that is the source of all things, that connection. And therefore, by becoming acquainted with what that is and who that is, and however you identify that, some people call it God, some people call it source, some people call it the universe, however words you want to use. The point is that when you make that connection, that is the true source of all life. That's what I want to say. I'm lost. We become lost at words when we talk about this stuff. It's funny.
Well, let me ask you a question. I mean, you and I have both had spiritual experiences where at least I'm pretty sure, I know I have, and I'm pretty sure you have as well, that there was no doubt that there was a creator, that there's something more than what we can physically perceive with our five senses.
Oh yeah.
Do you want to share some of those things that you've that were your personal experience, or do you think that maybe not relevant?
No, I'm willing to talk about them. I don't have a long list.
Oh,
like a lot of people do. Some people have long lists. I have this inner connection, and so at a young child, I was raised in a church, but I've always had this connection with what I called God, and there were times, even as a young child, when I heard the voice that was not out of my mind. It was something I heard in my inner being, and it was very clear to me what was being said. And so that was my first experience of something supernatural. Now, some people say, well, maybe you just heard voices in your head. No, I didn't. It was in my being, and it came true. Everything that was said came true in my life, So that was my first experience.
Well, I've probably shared this before, but one of the things that was most convincing to me is I had a friend that was sort of agnostic, and he agreed to go to church with me one Sunday, and we actually prayed together in the church. And he later asked me, "How did you do that?" And I said, "Do what?" He said, "I would think a question, and without saying it to you, you'd answer it." And he says, this went on several questions in a row. And that was his conversion experience. He realized,
wow.
and it was, for me, that was understanding that I was tapped into something beyond my conscious self.
That is true. Yeah, throughout my life, and especially with my coaching people, as a life coach, I will find myself, I get a connection. I was going to say a voice. It's not a voice. It's a message that comes into my awareness, and I don't understand what it's about. I just know, I know the source. So I just share it, and when I share it, they go, "Wow." They go, "That's exactly what I was thinking," or that was a question I was going to have. That's something I was perplexed about. So
there's a knowing. I mean,
it's a knowing, and
but
what happens
we don't
is,
know how it's a knowing.
I have to stop questioning it. I just have to speak it. And sometimes when I say, okay, I remember one lady, I said to her, I said, "I don't know what this means, but I'm getting this message like you're not here." And she started laughing, and I go, what's so funny? She goes, "I'm moving." And that's why I wanted to talk to you about.
So she was already mentally in the new place that she was going
That's exactly right. In fact, that's why she wanted to talk about the transition she was getting ready to make, and moving. Yeah, you never know, there is obviously a risk of being out there in left field and being seen as being crazy when you start tapping into the spiritual stuff, because in the physical, we trust more in the physical than we do in the invisible, because the invisible is like a mystery to some of us. So they're again, huh?
It's not tangible.
Yeah, well, right. There's a contrast. We can't see it, hear it, feel it, except for the intuitive part of us, and that. But the more you trust in the intuitive part, the more you begin to realize it really is the source of all things. Everything comes out of that, and so we're learning that collectively as a people, to trust more and more in what we call the supernatural or the invisible, and realize that those things do change the physical. So when the law of correspondence, here again, I bring it back to this, as within, so without. So if I want to change something out here, I have to change it within me. I have to shift my consciousness, the way I think about something, And so if I want to stop the racial issue, I cannot speak against it until I let go of my own prejudice, And when I let go of my own feelings about, separation, then it will affect me and the people around me, and I can speak to it. It's not just the words; it's also the energy that's coming out of me.
Yes, and I've noticed with some people, all they want to do is butt heads and argue, and there's no point in having a dialogue when there are people trying to convince you that you're wrong and they're right. And that goes on both from my direction and from theirs.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Both sides.
I heard a lady the other day, and I thought this was great. They were having picket signs, with the political thing, and you had the right on one side and you had the left on the other. So you had the Democrats and Republicans over there, and they're all holding their signs and yelling and screaming. And this one lady says, I stood there and I listened to what was being said, and I'm realizing deep down inside, we all wanted the same thing. we were on different sides of the road, but we wanted the same thing.
That is true, I think, of all the issues. We all would like to be loved and have peace in our lives as well as in the world around us. I mean, I think that's a universal concept.
Yeah, it's just how we get there is where the differences come. And so we allow those differences to become huge. But the truth of it is, what we get caught up in the us and them thinking, and not realizing that. Let's talk about the issues, about, like you just said, what we really want. We all want love. We all want peace. We all want health. We all want happiness. We all want to be able to prosper. We all want to be able to have family. We want to be able to have things that we can enjoy. We all want that.
Because that's what life is. Why do you suppose we forget? So, I mean, some people seem to have some memory, but for most of us, we don't remember the continuum. Why? What do you conceive the purpose to be of like starting from scratch each time you're born into a new?
So what you're saying is, when we come into this world, we forget who we are, spirit being.
In most cases, that's the truth. Right.
Well, my belief of that is survival. because if we came to this world and we knew who we were, we'd be more apt to say, well, it doesn't really matter, and then we'd end up checking out, or giving up our place here in the universe. But the ego is all about survival, about protecting this body. And so when I come into this world,
which is actually a natural process of the formation of ego.
It is meant to be, and the ego is not evil. The ego is just purpose to protect us. That's what its purpose is. But when you get older, or when you come into an awareness, you realize I don't really need that protection, because you become aware of who you are, and you'll find that in that awareness you have your protection, because you're not here by chance. You're here in physical form with a purpose. And when you realize what that purpose is, and you begin to serve that purpose, that is your protection. I know that's hard for people to understand, but that has been my revelation about who I am and why people come and go the way they do in our lives.
Well, I think it's why I've survived 2 open heart surgeries.
You got that one right, buddy.
Because they didn't give me much of a chance.
Oh, I thought we were going to lose you, man.
A lot of people thought I was.
When you went in the hospital with your heart thing, and after that stroke, I thought you were on your way out. But you came right back, and here you are, still making the videos, and you're still helping a lot of people. You helped me immensely throughout the years, and so yeah, you're serving your purpose. There's no question about that.
My mission wasn't finished yet.
Yep.
So even though nobody else believed I was going to live, I did.
Yeah. And so the people who are listening to this, if you want to secure your immortality or immortality, serve your purpose. Find out what your purpose is, and do that. As long as you're needed, you're going to be here.
Even if the numbers of your views drop off like mine.
Yeah. Good thing that we don't depend upon our views for our life expectancy. No, because there are other things going on that we have no idea. I was just telling the story the other day about how we make an impact upon people, and we really don't realize how we're impacting one another. So the key to this thing is to become aware of who you are. And something I shared this morning in my spiritual group, we had a meeting this morning. I was saying to the fact that what was I going to say? It just escaped me.
That happens to me too.
Why did it do that? Let's see. It'll come to me in a second here. Well, it's just not going to come. What were we talking about? We were talking about. I was talking about giving service to one another, and we here again we talked about the spiritual aspect of us versus the physical, and I can't remember what the point was I was going to make on that, but
it may or may not come back to you. That's been my experience.
Yeah. Maybe somebody listened to the video. Maybe they got it, and I didn't get it. You didn't get it.
Well, it could be. We are all connected at some level. Even if you're totally unaware of that, there is a connection. Life is connected. And that's not just human life. That's life with everything.
Yes.
That's why I hug trees, which, some people don't get, but some people do.
Let me share a quick story, though. This is kind of a little bit off the subject, but you mentioned about hugging trees. In my awareness, in my newfound spiritual awakening, I have a much closer relationship with Earth and the plant life and with animals, but I don't have it near like you and other people may have. I can hug a tree, but it doesn't seem I don't seem to connect at the depth that other people do. And I started feeling guilty about this. I'm going, and I asked God, I said, why is it that I don't have the same feeling that they do? And you know the answer I got? This is my story.
Go ahead.
My answer was, you're not from Earth. You're from another planet.
Okay. Well, I think we've all been on perhaps other planets as well.
Yeah, right. And the planet that was given to me was the sun, and I don't understand that either. I'm not going to try to understand it, but then science itself doesn't understand the sun. So, it makes no difference to me. I respect people who are connected and are able to love animals and can grow things like our friend Tony. I mean, it's amazing
Yeah.
how he's able to grow things in his garden. I can't grow anything. I mean,
No,
I've tried it.
I gave up after a few years of trying to grow a garden in the soil of where I lived, but I had my house.
Yeah, people don't realize that that's a gift to be able to do that, and but that's okay. You know, the most important thing is to connect to our true higher self and to discover who we really are. And Spirit will speak to you and reveal to you what that is. And with that will come the purpose, your mission, your assignment to fulfill. So, you know.
Well, I think one of the things, looking at the title again, one of the things is to remove the verses.
Well, that's true.
We think in those terms often.
Right. We separate it.
When we can eliminate the verses and recognize inner self equals outer self.
Yeah.
And that works. Equals means it works the same in both directions. It's not a not equal to, which is an equal sign with a line slash going through it. They ultimately are the same thing, but we have to come to the realization of that.
Okay, I will argue a little bit about that. Jesus, he didn't say as on earth, so it be in heaven. He says, as in heaven, so it be on earth. So I would argue that what happens on earth may affect the heavens, but only up to a certain degree. In other words, there's a battle going on in the invisible based upon what's happening on
earth. A bifurcation, obviously.
But basically, I guess my emphasis is we came from invisible into physical. So that takes priority over the physical. At the same time, you're right. The physical will not exist without the invisible. So there is no versus. That separation is only in our mind.
Yeah, well, it's not just a separation; it's a conflicting separation.
Yeah, right. Well, not to me. Maybe maybe a little bit, you know.
Yeah, I mean, trying to figure out the mystery of our existence is certainly the biggest challenge, as I see it, that we face as human beings.
Yeah, and most of us don't have the tools or the knowledge to know how to discover that, and the answer is in the questions. We need to ask better questions. I'm a believer that if you ask better questions, you get the answers you're looking for. And the reason people are confused by what you're saying is they don't know how to ask the questions.
Well, then too, I honestly believe that my parents giving me to God as they did before I was even conceived put me on a path with a certain predisposition that became evident from early childhood.
Well, I will say that you were on that path before you came, and
well, they just
acknowledged
it. Their dedication and commitment reaffirmed it.
Yeah, but they knew their higher selves. They knew you made that agreement long before you came into this world with them, so it was all part of it together. I mean, it's a pattern, a flow of energy, and how things were formed and shaped. But yes, in your mind, you remember that story. You remember them telling you that, and so be it. You know, so it was.
Yeah, when I was 18 is when they told me that.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, my parents never told me that story about me, but there was no question about it that was their perception. You know, so yeah, and they gave me everything they could give me to have the life I've had. I've lived an awesome life. I've had the best parents. I've had the best. I get to do what I want to do most of my life. I've learned so much and had great experiences, and now I'm having this spiritual awakening. In the past 18 years, it's been a huge leap of awareness for me. And you came into my life about a little over 10 years ago, and that was another period that was some huge leaps when we used to meet at your home. You know, it was. There was some very
heartbreaking when I could no longer have those meetings.
I understand that, yeah. But the cycles come back around. Who knows what will happen in the future here? Now I'm having meetings. I meet every Tuesday morning with a small group down in Vero Beach, Florida. And then on Wednesday night, I meet the group out on Indian Harbor Beach on Wednesday nights. And we have about 10 or 15 people that come together every Wednesday night. And it's amazing what comes out of it. Because I will say this. we had some high caliber people at your place when we met, but the people who are showing up now on these meetings I'm experiencing, there's been a leap. There's been a leap in the consciousness. The things that we discuss is not quite the same as it was, 18 years ago or 10 years ago. So it's amazing. We are evolving.
Yeah.
I mean, what we're talking about here right now, I don't know that you and I could have had this discussion 10 years ago or 12 years ago. I don't know. We were just beginning to understand. I was just beginning to comprehend some of this.
Yeah, well, we were both raised as fundamentalists.
And I had to let go of a lot of that.
Evangelicals, whichever label you want to put on it.
Yeah, right. And I had to let go. In fact, it was during that time I was letting go of a lot of my beliefs of Christian, a dogma. I mean, don't get me wrong. I still read the Bible at times. I definitely depend upon the Holy Spirit. So it's not like I'm totally ripped out all my belief system about my Christian rearing, but it has been a basis in which Spirit has used to help further me along. At the same time, I honor my brothers and sisters who are Buddhist or Hindu or whatever. So because there's a lot of truth in what's being said, And,
yeah, well, there's truth in all religions, and that has to be the case
at some point,
because all of humanity is a mixture of at least some truth with all the rest of the BS that we've got to wade through.
Right. So yeah, this awareness, as you are implying here, is of both the physical and the invisible, is becoming more and more merging together, and more. There's not the conflict or the contrast. It's becoming. It's a dance. It's a dance that we're doing.
The dance is a good description.
Yeah, because. Yeah. I'm very happy and very pleased with what I'm experiencing. I'm sorry. My intention is being held for the rest of the world, that they would be freed from the suffering and the frustration and anger and all the chaos and confusion that's going on. But in my life, I'm not having that experience. We had a long discussion yesterday with another group I was with about that very topic, and the shift takes place within us, and then it changes out here. But it's happening out here too, because
there's more and more people awake now on the planet that in various stages of awakening is probably a better way to say it.
That's right.
Than ever before. And
there's this yearning within my soul and my spirit to open up and experience a higher level of awareness or an expansion of my consciousness. And it's nothing that I'm having to do. It's just all I have to do is be open, to surrender to it. I'm being pulled, the way I describe it, I'm being pulled up I'm letting go of the things that are holding me down. And then when you do that, you naturally just come up. So it's not like I'm having to struggle. I don't have to go through rituals. I don't have to read the Bible every day or say prayers. I do meditate frequently because I get a lot of joy out of it. It helps me a lot to do that connection and to remember who I am. That part I do. So if there's any one thing I tell people to do is learn how to meditate, and there's different forms of meditation. There is no one way of doing that either. So.
Right. Anyway, we have about a minute to wrap up before the half hour. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we've gone 29 minutes now.
Wow.
Did it seem faster?
Oh yeah, it just disappears, But in the third dimension, there's time, and then when we raise ourselves into higher densities, time dissipates. So having fun.
Okay. Well, once again, I thank you, Steve, and I thank you for being willing to speak to the group on this past Sunday. And thanks for making this video with me. We've got to make some more, and I know it's been a while since we've made our last one, but we'll do it more again.
Anytime. Okay.
Well, thank you very much, and namaste, as I say.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.